The restaurant buzzed softly with laughter and the clinking of glasses. But at one corner table, time seemed to move differently. She sat there quietly, hands trembling slightly as she looked at the untouched glass of water in front of her. Her dress was simple, maybe too simple for the kind of place she'd been brought to. Every glance from the other tables made her shrink a little more inside. When he finally walked in tall.com, and carrying a quiet kind of warmth, her first words came out in a whisper. I don't deserve this date. He stopped for a moment, his eyes softening as if her words hit something deep inside him. Then, leaning closer, he said gently, then it's my honor to prove you do. The room faded for her right then. Nobody had ever said something like that to her, not after everything she'd been through. She wasn't used to kindness that asked for nothing in return. But little did she know, this wasn't just a date. It was the beginning of something that would challenge both their pasts and heal wounds they'd hidden for years. As the night unfolded, secrets quietly waited between their smiles. And one unexpected truth was about to change everything they thought they knew about love, pain, and second chances. What was it about her that made him say those words? And what truth was he hiding behind his gentle eyes? The answer would come, but not tonight. She smiled faintly, though her heart was still guarded. As they talked, her voice carried a quiet sadness she couldn't hide, like someone who had learned to live with disappointment. Her name was Alina, girl who had once dreamed big but had learned the world could be unkind. She worked 2 jobs, rarely took a day off, and still struggled to make rent. This date wasn't her world, it was his. Ethan was the kind of man who looked like life had always opened its doors for him, a successful entrepreneur.com, confident, and used to people treating him with respect. Yet sitting across from Alina, he felt something unfamiliar, something real. Every time she tried to laugh, he noticed the hesitation behind it, as if she didn't think she deserved happiness. He wanted to ask what had made her believe that, but her eyes warned him not to dig too deep. Still, there was something about her honesty, her quiet strength, that drew him closer. As the night went on, Alina began to wonder why someone like him would choose someone like her. She didn't know he had a reason, one that traced back to a night years ago, when a stranger's kindness had saved him from making a life-changing mistake. And now, sitting with her, that memory stirred again. He wasn't here by chance. But as the waiter approached with a folded note addressed to Ethan, the mood shifted. His smile faded. Alina noticed, and the real story was only beginning. Ethan's eyes froze on the small note the waiter handed him. It wasn't handwritten, it looked like something printed in a hurry. Alina watched quietly, her curiosity growing as she noticed the color drain from his face. He folded it quickly and tried to smile, but his hand trembled just enough for her to notice. Everything okay? She asked softly. Ethan nodded, forcing calm into his voice. Yeah, just something from work. But his tone betrayed him. For the rest of the evening, something hung between them, an invisible weight neither dared to name. Alina, though trying to stay polite, couldn't shake the feeling that this date wasn't what it seemed. She had felt unwanted most of her life, but now she wondered if she was being used for something she didn't understand. Outside the restaurant, the city lights painted the night with a soft glow. Ethan walked her toward a cab, his mind far away. The words from the note echoed over and over. Asterisk, you owe her the truth. It wasn't signed, but he knew exactly who had sent it. Meanwhile, Alina's friend Mira called her, worried. You really don't know who he is, do you? She asked. There was something in her tone, something that made Alina's stomach twist. What do you mean? She whispered. Before Myra could answer, the line cut off. Alina stood frozen by the curb, the cool air brushing her face, while Ethan's car disappeared into the distance, carrying secrets that could destroy everything. The next day, Alina couldn't focus at work. The evening kept replaying in her mind the way Ethan's expression had shifted after reading that note, the unease in his voice, and Mira's sudden warning. She wanted to believe it was all just a misunderstanding, but her instincts whispered otherwise. Something about Ethan didn't fit the picture he painted. Still, a part of her didn't want to let go of the warmth she'd felt when he said, "It's my honor to prove you do." Those words had felt so real. Ethan, on the other hand, spent the morning pacing in his office, staring at a photo hidden in his drawer. It was old, creased from years of being opened and folded again. In that photo was a young woman, Alina's mother. His chest tightened. She had once saved him when no one else cared, and he had promised himself that if he ever found her family, he would return the kindness. But Alina couldn't know that. Not yet. Not until he figured out who sent that message and why someone wanted her to learn the truth now. As night fell, Alina received another message, this time slipped under her apartment door. The paper was the same as the note Ethan had received. It read, asterisk, you deserve to know who he really is. Her hands shook as she read it again and again. Outside, she heard footsteps fade into the night. Her phone buzzed. It was Ethan calling. For a long moment, she just stared at the screen. Torn between answering and running from everything, Alina finally answered the call, her voice barely steady. Ethan, what's going on? There was a long pause before he spoke. Alina, we need to meet. There's something I should have told you from the beginning. His tone was low, almost pleading. Please, just trust me tonight. Before she could reply, the call disconnected, leaving her heart pounding with fear and confusion. Moments later, a car pulled up outside her building. She hesitated, clutching the folded note in her hand, but curiosity won over caution. As she stepped inside, Ethan was already waiting. He looked different, tired, conflicted, and carrying the weight of something he could no longer hide. "I didn't mean for you to find out this way," he said quietly. "But there's someone else involved. Someone who doesn't want you to know the truth." Before Alina could respond, another voice came from behind her. "He's right," Myra said, stepping out of the shadows. Alina froze. "Mira, you knew." Her friend's eyes glistened with guilt. "I was trying to protect you. Ethan isn't who you think he is, but he's not your enemy either." The air grew heavy as Ethan handed Alina an envelope. "Your mother. She saved me once, and now, someone's trying to erase everything she stood for. That's why they're after you." Alina's fingers trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a faded photo, her mother, standing beside a young Ethan, smiling. But before she could ask anything, the lights flickered and a sharp knock echoed at the door. The knock grew louder, urgent, echoing through the dimly lit room. Ethan moved instinctively, placing himself between Alina and the door. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Mira's hands shook as she reached for her phone, but before she could call for help, the door swung open. A tall man in a dark coat stepped inside, his expression cold but strangely familiar to Alina. "Hello, Alina," he said calmly. "It's been a long time." Her heart stopped. She recognized the voice. It was her late mother's old business partner, the one everyone thought had disappeared years ago after her mother's accident. Ethan's eyes hardened. "You were the one who sent the notes." The man smirked. "I had too. She deserves to know the truth you kept from her." Alina's voice trembled. "What truth?" The man looked directly at her. "Your mother didn't die in an accident. She was silenced for exposing corruption in Ethan's company years before he took over." The room fell silent. Ethan stepped forward, his voice breaking. "It's true. My father's actions destroyed everything your mother stood for. I've spent years trying to fix what he ruined." He reached for her hand. "I didn't come into your life by chance, Alina. I came to make things right." Tears welled in her eyes as the weight of it all sank in. But before she could speak, the man turned to leave, whispering, "Fix it quickly, Ethan, because you're not the only one who owes her." And with that, the door slammed, leaving them in stunned silence as the truth finally came full circle. The silence after the door closed felt heavier than any words. Alina stood there, her heart torn between anger and understanding. Ethan didn't try to defend himself. He just looked at her, guilt clear in his eyes. "I know you have every reason to hate me," he said softly, "but everything I've done since that day was to honor your mother. She believed in truth and so do I now." Alina's fingers brushed over the old photo, her mother's smile frozen in time. "She always said good people make mistakes," she whispered. "What matters is what they do to fix them." Ethan's eyes glistened, the weight on his shoulders finally breaking. "Then let me fix this with you, not for you."